Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Conversations from Stritch. I'm excited to be here today and joined by our Provost, Dr. Christopher Sint. Next week, as I'm sure everyone on campus is well aware, it is spring break because everybody is looking forward to their travel plans. We really hope that everyone enjoys the time away from classes. Hopefully you have time with friends or family, get a little bit of respite from studying and enjoy the time away. We'll be off next week in terms of the show, but look forward to the last 8 weeks of the semester. We were just talking about the shows we're going to do, and there's going to be some really great guests, students, faculty, coaches. We're really looking forward to the second 8 weeks of the semester. We were happy earlier this week on Tuesday to welcome Bishop Hicks, Bishop of the Joliet Diocese, onto campus to rededicate Sancta Alberta Chapel. The renovated chapel really looks beautiful, and I want to thank all those involved in the project. We also celebrated Ash Wednesday yesterday on campus. That begins our Lenten journey. And I wanted to thank everyone involved in ministry on campus this week. It feels like it's been a really rich week in terms of liturgical celebrations, and the musicians and everybody involved in campus ministry has really done a great job. So we're really grateful for that. We have other events happening. We always talk about the amazing things that are going on with faculty and staff. So Chris, maybe you could let us know what's going on there.
All right, thanks. Hello, everyone. Great to be with you. I just want to reiterate what President Livingston just said about the two masses this week. They were really wonderful in every way, and so many people came, and it was just great to see that many members of our community out for to celebrate Ash Wednesday and the rededication of the chapel. Also, I was just thinking, it is spring break, but it's a great time if people are watching and don't normally come to campus or might be thinking about going to Lewis. It's a great time to visit the campus because it also feels like spring when you walk around and seeing things getting green here. It's great. I saw them taking off those little things, trees that they have on the trees that keep them insulated for the winter. I thought that was a good sign that it's springtime now.
I will say, though, just on that front, you and I were sitting in because many people on campus, probably this feels like somewhat of an event. It's not an event, but we're sitting in a room, in the sunroom the other day, and saw like a dozen deer walk across the road, on campus. And I know we have a couple herds of deer here, and of course they also can take out some trees if we're not careful. So anyway.
Yeah. So some news from around campus. The Lewis University placed third in the state at the Illinois Collegiate Cyber Defense Competition on February 19th. The team was fielded by members of Lewis's Cyber Defense Club and consisted of students Jorge Campos, who is the team captain, Andrew Milligan, Jocelyn Murray, Joseph Sante, and Ryan Saeed. Dr. Jason Perry, Associate Professor of Engineering, Computing, and Mathematical Sciences, and Director of Cybersecurity and IT Programs here, serves as their faculty advisor. So thank you to Professor Perry and many other faculty I know who help with that club, and they always do wonderfully in these competitions. The Lewis University Institute for the Advancement of Catholic and Lasallian Education is sponsoring its 7th annual Lasallian Colloquium. It will be held virtually from 6 to 8 p.m. on March 14th and March 16th. This year's theme is "To Dream is Our Way Forward." The keynote address is called "Cannonballs, COVID, and the New Reality," and it will be delivered by Dr. Michael Boyle, Superintendent of the Joliet Diocesan Catholic Schools. And that keynote address will be on March 14th. And you can visit the website or check out the website for more information about registering for that conference. The Jet Fuel Review will have a writing showcase this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. featuring poets Rita Mukherjee and Carrie McGrath. So if you're free this afternoon, come on out and check that out. And then Lewis University continues to host an art exhibition by artist Benjamin Calvert running through March 18th in the Brent and Jean Wadsworth Family Gallery. I have had a chance to check that out. It's an amazing show. Wow, really great work. by that printmaker. And so please see that, and he'll be doing a talk right when we get back from spring break, March 18th from 7 to 9 p.m. in the gallery. So, a lot going on in sports.
There is a lot going on in sports. Really an amazing couple weeks this week and then coming up next week. Congratulations. Really want to shout out to our men's and women's indoor track team who competed last week in the GLVC tournament. The men's team placed second in the tournament, and the women's team won their third consecutive championship, which really is amazing. The GLVC is a really packed conference, and we consistently perform so well. Several athletic events going on this weekend, and next week is a week of travel for most of our teams. We have 3 members of the women's track and field team heading to the national championships next week, so good luck to Natasha Burnett, Alicia Cardillo, and Jada Hoffman. Really hope, when we only send a few, it's, there's a certain, they miss their whole team, but really wish you well on the national stage. Our men's and women's basketball teams compete in the GLVC tournament, just like indoor track did last week. The men play tonight against McKendree. It's a good rematch. We've faced them a couple times this year, and it should be a great game tonight. So, get online, watch it at 8:30. The women play tomorrow against Truman State at noon. We'd love to see both our teams, and I think they both have the capacity to end up in the finals for that tournament. Men's volleyball will host Emmanuel College tomorrow night at 7 in Neil Carey, and then they head to Hawaii next week for a tournament hosted by the #1 team in the country out in Hawaii. Women's lacrosse hosts Ashland at Saturday at noon. So now I saw in the news that it could reach 70 on Saturday. So if you're not doing anything, heading out to the stadium to watch women's lacrosse might be something to do to pretend like it's spring already, even though I'm sure next week it'll be 30 again.
Right.
Men's lacrosse plays on Saturday at Lake Erie, and women's tennis heads to Hilton Head, another warm place in South Carolina, where they will take on Florida Southern on Saturday and West Liberty on Sunday. Men's tennis will also be at Hilton Head, taking on West Liberty. Our softball team travels to Winter Haven, Florida to compete in spring games, where they'll play Wayne State, Grand Valley State, Upper Iowa, and Walsh. And our baseball team will also be in Winter Haven competing in the Russ Matt Invitational, where they will play Concordia St. Paul and Minnesota Crookston on Sunday. So for our students who might be going down to especially the Orlando area, which is really where Winter Haven is close to. I have some friends that live about 10 miles from Winter Haven, but it's right in that Orlando area. So if you're going to Orlando for spring break, take a little side trip, go down to Winter Haven, cheer on our men's and women's teams that are playing baseball and softball down there. So COVID, still with us, Chris, but continues to be better on a national stage. And I know you're going to talk about what's going on a more local stage, both campus-wide and in the state and county.
That's right. So no new big news about COVID today, but just a reminder of some of the cases in our region, as well as and our campus, and then some reminders of some policies. So we'll start with the county cases per 100,000 in Will County was 69 in the last reading, still in the orange zone, but the lowest number since July. So still going in a great direction. Positivity ratio, same thing. Context, 2.4%, very low, lower than any time in the fall semester. We had 3 positive cases in the Lewis community last week, and so far we've had 3 this week. The vaccination rate in Will County is 67% with 49% boosted, and in our own community, with almost everyone reporting a 91% rate of fully vaccinated students. So some reminders about some policies. Face coverings are required only in classrooms, labs, and other specifically identified locations on campus. The booster status is required to be uploaded through the app by March 14th. That's the Monday returning from spring break. Residential students need to submit a negative test taken between March 12th and 16th. So again, that spans the time between spring break and the beginning of the spring semester. So if you're away traveling, you can get the test on Saturday or Sunday of that weekend, or if you want to wait to get tested back on campus, that's also okay, and we'll have clinics open to do that, to get that test. Weekly testing is, next week will be limited to Tuesday and Wednesday from 9 to 4, and then we'll start up again, as I just said, on March 14th, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. A reminder, as always, that unvaccinated people must submit testing results before Thursday at 6 p.m. To avoid fines and registration holds. And as always, use the app for that or for reporting a positive test, symptoms, or to upload vaccination or booster information. So that's all we have to say. Any
No, I mean, the only
questions
thing I
about
guess I
COVID?
would say about that is just, again, thanks to everybody for, I think, this transition that we did last week. You know, we understand, and we heard from some people that it was a little bit confusing the first day, like
Absolutely.
where am I supposed to wear a mask? Where don't I have to wear a mask? But it feels like it settled down after first couple days and people understood it. And we're just, I guess I just want to say we're grateful for everybody, you know, following along, doing all the stuff that you just got done talking about. I will say, you know, this, the testing, you know, we really want to make sure that as everybody, you know, we have 6,400 people. Many of them are going to be traveling all over the country. They're going to be interacting with people they don't normally interact with. When they come back, we want to get everybody tested so that we can start that second 8 weeks in a really positive and healthy way. So yeah, we want people to have fun on spring break, and we want them to come back and be healthy here. So so we have our guest with us.
Yeah, so
Chris.
we're really happy to turn to the focus for today and introduce our guest, welcome our guest, Dr. Robert Harris, who is the program director for the Master of Science Project Management program and an assistant professor of organizational leadership here at Lewis. Dr. Harris has worked here at Lewis for about 4 years, teaching primarily in the College of Business. He's also done some great volunteer work, and that includes the Alpha Phi Alpha Education Committee and DuPage County ACT So, which is a STEM program for high school students. Dr. Harris, welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. We're really
Stretch.
excited to have you.
Wonderful
Yeah.
to be here with you. So we'll just launch right in. I think some of us might be new to the term project management, even though we all experience it in our lives regularly, if we're lucky. So could you just maybe explain what is project management?
Okay. By definition, a project has a beginning and an end. Okay. So as it relates to project management, now we're rolling into such terms as Agile, which is an iterative process. There's also a project program called Scrum that's associated with project management. So anytime that you're dealing with a project, there are a number of role players that are involved in that, right?
Yeah.
There need to be certain rules that should be set. Maybe you should set a charter. Maybe you should figure out what are the talents that are available on the team, and make sure that you communicate. Matter of fact, communication is probably the number one problem involved in project management.
Yeah. So can you just give us maybe a little bit of an, I mean, as Dr. Sent said, we all kind of face this, but I'm not sure necessarily that all of our students, because they might get a classroom project, and we're dealing with something different, because they can go out and be a professional in which they're managing projects for, you know, I don't know, anybody from Nabisco to Lewis University to, you know, Silver Cross Hospital to the Will County. And so could you talk a little bit about, and it used a couple specific, it sounds like kind of methods, but give me a sense of what would if somebody did get a degree, and we'll talk more about the program itself, what might they be doing as they go work for, you know, a corporation? Like what would a week look like or a month look like for them in terms of work? And I guess because we're inviting people to look into this as an occupation, what are some of the pros of why would I want to be a project manager? What's either exciting about it, interesting about it? Give me a little sense of that.
Well, project management helps you to understand what are the tools that you have available to you. Typically, all projects have an objective. There's also a time frame involved in it, right? And so now you have to figure out how to best use the tools and engage the team in that process. Well, what are going to be the rules of engagement with the teams? What are going to be the time frames for your deliverables? Okay, and what's going to be the quality standards that you're going to set for that specific deliverable? You also want to bring in your stakeholders. I always call them the voice of the customer. How do they feel about what you're doing? What are their expectations? So all those things need to be rolled in to your project plan as you go through it.
And so for a person that I guess when I hear some of that, sometimes the challenge, it seems to me, is that people end up in this situation, because we have a lot of projects at Lewis that in some sense I'm trying to manage, and so you got people from all sorts of areas of the organization. Sometimes they don't work together all the time, sometimes they do. So when you talk about that kind of need to pull everybody together, get it on a timeline, and of course there's budget constraints to almost every project as well. So it feels to me like the personality characteristics also of project manager are important, because they kind of need to motivate people, keep people on task, and sometimes they're viewed as this person who is holding me accountable, so to speak, and that can be a awkward situation sometimes.
Well, personality, culture, timing also take a role.
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things that a project manager begins to develop over a time period. They get better at it, hopefully with time and experience. We say practice makes better.
Yes.
Not so much makes it perfect, but it makes it better.
Yeah.
Can I ask a negative version of this question?
Ooh.
So how do you identify when a project is not being managed well, or what does it look like?
Good question.
What are some of the signs?
Let's talk about the word done, D-O-N-E. When is the project actually done? We all have to decide upon when is the end, because a project always has a beginning and it has an end. But sometimes you're working with various individuals who have a certain professional level that maybe they're not done with their section yet, and they may be causing some particular bottlenecks. Right? But you may have, let's say, a project owner that's working with the schedule in mind, and they're saying, well, look, you've got to meet this deadline. Let's just push it through. And there are some industries like IT or software development where sometimes programs or projects are pushed through to the consumer, and then there's a 1.0 or 1.2 version that's developed as time goes along. You can't do that with an Apple phone now, but there's certain products and services that exist in that, arena.
So just to follow up on Chris's question, so is there this sense of, I mean, I know that I know the answer to this is yes, but when a project's not managed well versus having a project manager who's trained, who then comes in, what do you see as maybe the 2 or 3 biggest wins for an organization by the difference between a well-managed project and a not well-managed project? So kind of, why do I want a project manager on my team? Is it going to get me, I mean, do you see it as more time or money, or the product is better at the end, or maybe all those, I don't know.
Well, it's typically all of those, because time is always going to be important. The budget that you spend to help this project move through the various cycles is very important. And your time to deliver to the customer, because typically we're always working in some kind of competitive environment, even if we're in a non-profit or for-profit organization.
Sure. I mean, we certainly feel that. I mean, I think about any new academic program that we might bring on. If we don't get it ready for instance, a fall start, then sometimes we have to wait till January, or maybe wait till May or the following September to get it in. So I appreciate that.
If I could share one story.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago, there was an organization that came to our campus. They were the MIT of China, and they were from Wuhan, China, as a matter of fact. They came to our university wanting to do an exchange program with our students and also faculty, right? And because of their high level of being, let's say, the MIT of China, they had certain expectations for us. could we provide the same kind of quality that they were used to, even though our cultures are somewhat different? And I asked about that. What are the language? Are there any language complications? They said no. English is one of our first languages. But then COVID hit. That disrupted. There was an external force that disrupted our model and our plans. I had thought about maybe teaching there in the summertime in that exchange program. So they had identified us as a good project program to be involved with, but there was an outside force that came about.
Sure.
So sometimes those external factors
Right, sure.
can disrupt a project also.
Sure.
My mother used to have a saying, the best laid plans of mice and men sometimes go astray.
They sure do. They sure do.
So,
go ahead.
Just maybe tell us a little bit about the master's program. What are some of the courses people would take if they enroll in the program, and how is it designed?
I'm excited about the program. We have 10 courses in our master's program, and it starts with a Foundations in Project Management. It deals with Agile and Scrum, and it also has a capstone project. In between there, we have courses in governance. We have courses in supply chain, and also product procurement. The idea is to take that person through, I would think, all the functional areas that they might experience once they graduate from our program. The beauty of our program now is that it is accredited.
Yeah, so tell us about that accreditation. Recent, congratulations.
Thank you.
But tell us about what it means for our program that it's now accredited.
So our program is accredited by the Global Accreditation Center, which is, I think, the world standard. And now we have met that standard. There's only about 150 colleges and universities on our planet that have that designation.
And so I know we had a team visiting. What were the kinds of things they were looking for in the program? As you say, there aren't many programs that have this credit. So what is it about our program that fits their standards and is maybe a little different than what you might find at other colleges and universities?
Mr. President, I'm going to be a little biased. I think we've got some of the best instructors on the planet at our university. We also create the best curriculum. That we compared our curriculum with some of the best universities in the United States, but also in Europe. So I literally went around to every key university on the planet and looked at their curriculum, measured against what we were doing, and tried to make some additions and subtractions based upon that. Also, too, GAC provided us with an outline that suggested that these are the courses that would meet their criteria. And we met all 7 criteria.
And do is it? I assume it's kind of common for them to actually. We were talking about tabletop exercises earlier, but that they're doing projects as a part of a 8-week course that they might be involved. How does that? Tell me a little bit about, I guess, what I call the hands-on.
Or the culminating, the final experience that you talked
We're
about.
involved in what's called continuous improvement. So the program goes from having just theory courses, but we're also definitely involved in experiential experiences also. We involved in doing case studies. Now that we become a STEM designated program where we're inviting other international students to become part of our program, we decided to put more data analytics into the program. So what does that mean? If you're on a project now and you are talking to a business analyst, an IT person, an engineer, by going through our program, you have some tidbits of that you can put in your toolkit. So you can do Monte Carlo analysis, you can do what if analysis. We're doing more pivot tables into our program. In addition to some of the qualitative things, we're putting more quantitative analysis into our courses.
Yeah. And that really does seem like the best project managers have that, I guess what I would call the kind of high emotional IQ, because they have to work with so many people and read their body line, or they walk into this meeting, frustrated or excited, but they also need that data analytics, and that's not an easy thing to do, and to be able to help somebody along that path during this program feels really valuable.
When you're looking at, let's say, 20 or 15 columns of data, can you take that data and put it into a bar chart or a pie chart or maybe a pivot table and make that more convincing to your stakeholders? That's part of data communications. That's also one of our courses.
So I imagine, a whole bunch of different types of people. It's a kind of interdisciplinary master's degree. It has a little bit of what we just talked about, data analytics, but also these human skills. So I imagine almost anyone could do this and do it well if they're interested. In your experience, have you ever, if there are out there, people out there watching thinking about applying, what are some of the characteristics that you've seen in some of the students that you've had?
I've always felt if they got the will and the skill, they can make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. You just talked about pivot tables, but tell me a little bit about kind of both. I guess I'm interested in your background, how you got interested in project management as a discipline, and maybe where some of your own kind of research, or maybe the courses you love to teach the most of all the courses you have to teach. So, in terms of your own discipline, what led you down this path to end up here, and what are the things you love to research and teach?
Okay, so I started my career at AT&T and also at IBM. So in those roles, I was a product manager and a sales manager. I had a number of sales roles. And I always was dealing with data. I had another role where I was actually building telephone networks from Ohio out to California. And so we had projects that had to meet certain time constraints, certain cost constraints. What are some of the times that we're going to bring up the service, let's say in Dallas versus Houston? So we had to balance out that data. So I needed a framework that I knew about, but also I could share with my team so that we could also share the same language. Project management was part of that methodology that I began to adapt. So that was my first entree into project management.
Yeah. And so do you have an aspect of that you, like I said, really love teaching, or that your own research keeps looking at in terms of either where the field is going, where you think, project management, maybe it's, I don't know, is data analytics becoming more a part of that, or how is this, how's the field moving?
Good question. I think that what we're seeing now is more corners of the world are now becoming more involved in project management. About 2 years ago, I got a chance to visit Lagos, Nigeria, and talk with some of the students, wonderful campus, about this very subject, and how we could bring more colleges and universities together, either through technology or through student exchange, and talk about these kinds of subjects.
It also suggests that if you're interested in this field, there might be international opportunities for employment.
Yes. As a matter of fact, there was a term that I picked up in South Africa. It's called Ubuntu. Ubuntu means I am because we are. So it talks about the association of working with people collectively, but also working with people successfully. So we're understanding what our different cultures are, but understanding that what our goals are and how we're going to achieve that together that makes us one.
Well, and it seems to me, I mean, you've already raised this, but you talked about some corporations, but also your own travels, that there's so many instances now. In fact, it's probably more rare than not that somebody doesn't involve this, where a project may involve people not only from multiple states, like putting things from Ohio to California, but multiple countries, where they're, a bank is dealing with issues in Nigeria and in the United States and in Canada and in Brazil, and they're having to coordinate a project across time zones with multiple people in different parts of the world. So maybe we talked a little bit about emotional intelligence, but what about kind of cultural awareness and cultural sensitivity, and how that plays into maybe the curriculum, but also just into your sense of how you try to bring students along in that, because maybe they're more successful if they have a little bit of that cultural awareness?
That's a good question. I think that on most of our courses, we like to start with what's called a project charter. And the charter is an opportunity for teams that's inside of a class to come together and talk about what are their skills. What can they do best on this given project that they're working on? And you might be surprised that someone would like to present the project, someone would like to write or be the editor of the project. Some will have certain technical expertise that would bring to the project. So regardless of where they're from, what corner of the world, by at least coming together under that charter and setting their own rules, setting their own constitution, essentially, how they're going to operate. So they're setting up their own rules of engagement.
That sounds so great to have that sense of how to build a team and work as a team, built into the program. So
I mean, earlier we were
intricately.
talking about football teams and basketball teams. When you come on that field and you're playing, there are certain rules to play.
Sure.
But once you put the helmet on, we don't know who or where you are, but there are rules that are set within that particular guideline.
Yeah. No, it's very true. So, I want to, we'll wrap this up relatively soon, but it feels to me like there's inherent, I guess I want to say, conflict and disappointment in project management, meaning the project manager is going to deal with, here's 10 people on the team at a corporation or in an event, and 2 of those people just don't see, they've come to this charter, and I guess that what made me think of it is a part of a charter how we're going to resolve conflict.
Yes.
Because it feels like it's inherent in doing a large scale, we're going to, take whatever, AT&T from Ohio to California. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be disappointment. So how does that play into the kind of teaching methodology? Because I assume that happens as they practice project management. There's conflict between students, and it's not as important because there's not real dollars. There's not, $50 million at stake in this project, but there will be when they get out into the real world and do this work.
I love these questions. I mean, there's a concept called way of work. We talked about it the other day. And way of work suggests that we can operate our project now other than using waterfall, which is a sequential method. Now let's think about having the project and looking at it in smaller pieces and having more people to actually give their opinion about their experience of is this piece ready to move forward. So now there's more, let's say, democracy and also critique of the project going forward. So everyone gets a chance. There's what's called scrum meetings that happen for 15 minutes every day. And they have what's done, what's not done, right, and what we finished. So everyone gets a chance to decide where are they in the project, what's their responsibility. So that's another way to resolve it.
I think, and it makes sense, and it feels like, and it sounds to me like though there's a commitment to make to get a master's degree in project management, there are skills that are learned in project management that can be used throughout one's career, regardless of whether one is because somebody could become a project manager and in their 30s, and then by the time that they're 45 or something, they're doing something different, but that skill feels like it's going to be valuable for their entire career.
I would contend pilots, coaches, teachers are all involved in projects at the end of the day because they all have a beginning, they all have an ending, they all have objectives that need to be resolved.
Yeah, speaking of that skill set, that it's valuable to everyone, we did have a student write in a question, and I believe it's a undergraduate student who was interested in doing this work.
Good.
Are there do you know if there are courses in other, in undergraduate programs that would, where you could focus on project management?
You know what? I don't know of a discipline that would be excluded at the end of the day. I think that that's part of the diversity of thought that's now being brought into a project because of your experience. Maybe you can be an arts and science person and you're maybe good with history or editing information. I think that's a skill set that could be brought in. So it's not always just the quantitative courses of math or accounting of that nature, but some of the qualitative courses can also be added.
And are there any undergrad, I should probably know this, but I don't know. I mean, we offer 2,300 courses a semester, so I do not know all the courses. But are there undergrad specific courses in project management? Like if I was a junior,
in business
can
administration,
I take project management 302 if I'm studying business or whatever, and it introduces me to this whole concept, and then if I want to do a full master's
Well,
later?
I would love to do an undergraduate program.
Right.
No, but is there like a...
We'll look into it and respond to the student
we'll get
email.
back to you.
I have another question before we're done.
Sure.
So you mentioned the accreditation,
Yes.
the Pmi Accreditation, and we talked about how there are 150 universities across the world with this accreditation? How many are there in the Chicago area?
Good question. Right now, we have a neighbor in Naperville, DeVry University. They are a GAC accredited program. But they're not doing everything that we're doing, and I'm planning for them not to catch us.
Okay. But only 2 in the Chicago metro area that are accredited in this way. So that's impressive. I mean, because
And our program is
dozens
both
and
online.
dozens of universities.
Our program is both online and also we're
In
heading
person.
to in
Okay.
person also.
That's great. Yeah, so opportunities for both. No, I think that's, it really sounds like a great program, and it does sound like something, you know, I think there has been a shift, a slight shift, in the business world especially, to some of these master's degree programs that people feel like they give me an edge over and above maybe a broad program like an MBA, which is great. It's a great broad, can serve me in so many ways. Org leadership serves me in so many ways, but now people are looking at things like project management, data analytics, business analytics, cybersecurity as places where some people want to say, I want maybe a more specific skill set. And project management is one of those specific skill sets that now we're accredited to give people something that they can take to marketplace and say, I've been working for you for 5 years, I got my master's degree, and now I'm authorized, you know, skilled up to be able to do this project management work.
We have one more item that we want to include in our portfolio. Much like we talk about an accountant. An accountant can have an undergraduate degree or a master's degree in accountancy. But they really are not worth their grain of salt unless they have the CPA,
Sure.
which is a certification.
Right.
Well, we're planning, hopefully within the next 10 days, of being able to have a program like that, and it's called the PMP, the Project Management Professional, which is a certification. So someone finishing our graduate program could also apply for the certification, which I have, the PMP.
And and I know that there's not many, there's several of those certificates that, again, people sit for or apply for. Financial planner, you can, you know, be certified as a financial planner. I, you know, wasn't as aware of the project management certificate. So that's something that's potentially coming to Lewis soon.
Full service operation.
Yeah.
All
Wonderful,
right.
wonderful.
Great. Thank you.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you
for being here. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the
I really appreciate it.
conversation.
Thank you.
That's great.
We appreciate your leadership in this area, and all the work that went into getting the accreditation and the curriculum built up. So thank you, Dr. Harris. We really
Thank you
appreciate
both.
it.
Thank you both.
So as we wrap up today, I just wanted to again wish everyone a wonderful spring break. We hope you find some time to get away, to enjoy family and friends. Don't get sunburned if you're going somewhere warm, because your skin is not used to it, or at least my skin is not used to it. Yeah, have a really wonderful week. We wish you a really great spring break. We'll look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, and many blessings to you and your family.